Christian parenting.
Are you searching for the perfect gifts to celebrate the special moms, dads, and grads in your life? We are so excited about the Christian Parenting Moms, Dads, and Grads gift guide that has something for everyone. Whether you're honoring a new mom, a seasoned dad, or a recent grad, we've got you covered with thoughtful and meaningful gift ideas. Inside this gift guide, you're going to find some of our favorite resources, from Bibles and study tools to inspiring books, fun projects, and special bath products. You're guaranteed to find something special for the important people on your gift list this spring. You can visit christianparenting.org/gift guide to get your moms, dads, and grads gift guide today. The link is also at the bottom of the show notes if you need to find it there. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast. I am so glad that you're here today because we have some of our absolute favorite guests on. Sissy Goff and David Thomas from the Raising Boys and Girls podcast are joining me, and they are bringing incredible wisdom and so much encouragement for us as parents. They're going to talk about what kids are facing today, like some of the things that they're frequently seeing in their counseling practice, how therapy dogs play a role in their practice, and they're also giving us some simple, powerful ways that we can help our kids manage anxiety and grow in emotional resilience. So if you have ever felt overwhelmed or unsure about how to support your child's mental and emotional health, this conversation is for you. It is so helpful. Plus, don't miss, they give us some details about their upcoming Capable Kids Conference. So be sure to use a special discount code they share just for our listeners to get a discount on ticket prices. And if this podcast encourages you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more parents find the support that they need. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And let's jump right in with David and Sissy. Hello, Sissy and David. Welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Here.
Yeah, this is fun. We were talking before I started recording, and I said I have to stop and just push record because I was asking you too many questions without my mic on. I think it's going to be really, really good. Sissy, you've been here once before. And
I'm so honored to be back.
We've actually replayed your episode because I love it so much. But David, this is your first time, so you got
Honored
some big shoes to fill here.
I
Sissy.
do. Hard act to follow.
Well, it's fun to have you both. So thank
you.
You guys are really, really busy, so I appreciate you taking time to chat with me.
We're so honored to.
Thank you. I would love to start with a little intro for people who don't know you super well. So I don't know, whoever wants to go first is fine. Just a little bit about you guys, how you know each other, what you do, your families, life, all the important things.
Sissy, you go first.
Okay. Well, I am Sissy Goff, and I have been a therapist at Daystar Counseling Ministries since, what year? 1993, 31 years, 32 years now. And feel so privileged to get to do that work. And I have done it for all this time alongside various puppies who are my assistants. And it started with Noelle, who we can talk about why, but she was our first Daystar dog. And now I have a little Havanese named Patches who works with me every day. And then outside of that, my favorite other job right now is I get to be the aunt, AKA Diddy. They call me Diddy, to two little guys, a 3 and a 6-year-old named Whit and Henry, that are just the joy of my life these days. And we're having a ball together. They live about 3 blocks from me, my sister and her family, and I have a golf cart, and I just go back and forth as much as I possibly can.
And I'm sure they hate the golf cart.
Right. Yes. We have a lot of fun going on rides.
That's so fun. David, what about you?
Well, I have had the great pleasure and privilege of working alongside Sissy at Daystar since 97. So we've both been doing this work for a number of years, and really thankful to work with an incredible team of both humans and, as Sissy mentioned, dogs as well. We currently have 6 therapy dogs on staff, which is so much fun. We both said if you get to go to work every day and work with kids and dogs, you have a great day job. And we're really thankful that out of that day job, we get opportunities like this just to talk about things we're learning from sitting with kids and families every day. And in addition to the kids I work with, I have 3 kids of my own. My oldest is a girl, and then I have twin boys, and they are all young adults in their mid-20s. I also have a son-in-law as a few months ago, and in a few weeks, I'm going to have a daughter-in-law who is a delight as well. So my family's growing, and then we added an 8-month-old puppy to the equation. We didn't have enough going on with 2 weddings, so we thought, why not get a puppy too? So we have a 8-month-old Labrador Retriever who is teaching me a lot about patience and endurance. All the fruits of the Spirit, I feel like I'm learning on the regular with this dog.
When we got our dog, I remember the breeder had said we got a beagle, and she was like, remember, puppies are like toddlers without diapers. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I've done toddlers. It's fine. And then we brought her home, and I was, oh my gosh, this is so hard.
It is. So much learning.
So much learning. So little sleep.
Yes. Yes.
It's like toddlers and babies.
It's the absolute truth.
And speaking of so little sleep, we forgot to say that counseling is our day job. But aside of that, we also have a podcast of our own called Raising Boys and Girls, and we have gotten to write several books, the most recent of which we're going to talk about with you today. So we got a few different things going on, and puppies, both of us. So we're not sleeping at all.
No, you guys are. That's why I said I'm so grateful you took time out to talk with me, because you guys are so busy. And I would actually like to touch on some of that big picture stuff, because you guys really, truly do so much. And then I want to move into a little more particulars. But you have your podcast, you have all your books, you have these children's books now, because why not? And you have counseling and families and all the things. So when you look at all of these things that you do, like, what's your goal? Like, your big picture for kids and parents and families?
It's a great question.
Just really starting out with an easy one.
It's a really great question to think about. And Sissy, I'd be excited to hear what you'd say. I'd only respond by saying, I think we would both say in 30 years of doing this work, it's never been a harder time to be a kid. It's never been a more complicated time to be an adolescent, which means it's never been a harder time to be a parent. And our great hope through writing, through podcasting, through the work we do is really that parents would feel a sense of us encouraging them and being for them. I think because it's so hard, the last thing any parent needs right now is judgment, criticism, feeling beat down. And I think there are a lot of voices. I was laughing with somebody the other day, and I think about that age-old bumper sticker of, I think it says less barking, more wagging, and I think we are living in a world right now where there's a lot of barking happening on social media and different spaces. And Sissy and I just have no desire to contribute to that whatsoever, but we want to cheer parents on in what I think is an overwhelming, complicated job, and also to offer what we believe can be some practical help alongside the hope that all three of us know that I think is the hope we want to keep moving parents back toward over and over and over. Just that reminder that the God who made these extraordinary human beings that we've been given and entrusted to us will protect and provide for them. And we just get to steward these gifts. And so I think those are the reminders that feel the most important to us.
I would only add, David, I love how you answered that question. And I think it is such an honor to have done this work for 3 decades. And, so many people that are therapists and then end up writing books, doing things like that, stop the work of being with kids and families because there are so many demands on your time. We are so grateful to get to be in both spaces, and that we are in real time. We're ending this podcast and we're both going to Daystar, where we're going to spend all day with kids and families trying to help them work through whatever is in front of them right now and help them find help and hope in the midst of that. And so I think it has been such a gift all these years to sit in our little offices and help. And we love that the podcast and speaking and writing, all of those things help us expand the walls of Daystar. People so often say, we wish we had a Daystar in our town. And our intention in writing and doing all these things is to provide scaffolding for your family where you might not have to go to a therapist's office. You might, and it's a wonderful thing if you do, but we are hearing the concerns and taking back our biggest concerns for kids and families today. And then we're trying to answer those in real time on the podcast through books to provide as much help as we can from what we're learning sitting with kids and families.
Yeah. And when you're sitting with kids and families, right now? Because you're saying it's such a hard time to be a kid. It's such a hard time to be a parent because there's so much information at us all the time. And we both have podcasts, so we're putting out some information, hopefully good stuff. But there's, there's so much, and there's social media, and then you add in all the things you've always had with the community around you and your church. And it's just so much for everybody to manage. What are the things that you're seeing right now with kids and anxiety and being able to regulate emotions and, be resilient? And what are you seeing in kids the most?
Well, I'd say first off, I think to your great point, it's important to acknowledge that we have access to more information than any other time in history. And information is empowering, and it can also be overwhelming. I think every one of us listening, if we got really honest, would all say, okay, we have all fallen into that trap of, I have kind of a funny sensation in my body, and I start Googling it, and then I've diagnosed myself with some chronic
Dr. Google.
Yeah, terminal disease. Exactly. And then sat in front of my doctor who's like, stop Googling symptoms. Like, if you're worried about something, come here. And so we all know what it's like to have access to these tools that we use for good purposes in some moments and overuse or use in harmful ways in others. And I think we're struggling with that alongside the kids and adolescents we love. We're deeply concerned about kids' access to technology, and we've all been in those spaces. I laugh with parents all the time and say, I don't know an adult who wouldn't say, I've gotten a screen time report on Sunday and been shocked myself at how much time I spent on it. And so all that shared, I think that's so important to acknowledge first. And we would have a whole conversation about the animal of technology and how that's complicated the game. But I would say unique to work I've done with boys and adolescent young men, and Sissy, I'd be curious what you'd say with girls. I have a lot of concerns right now about how many boys are avoiding risk, healthy risk. All the way down to elementary age boys who I'm seeing less interested in joining a club or playing a sport or trying a new activity, to adolescent boys who have little to no interest in getting their driver's license, getting a part-time job, asking a girl to a homecoming dance, taking the ACT line to college. And that's not to say college is the end-all be-all for every kid, but I think if we're closing doors early on and that pattern were to continue, it makes sense that when we get to the higher stakes moments in mid to late adolescence and young adulthood, where it just doesn't feel familiar to take healthy risk and to put myself out there and to try something new, to try something that's hard, which is part of why the message of this children's books felt so important to speak to say to kids on the front side, like, it's a good thing to try hard things. It's a necessary skill set for life, because you're going to bump up against hard things all the time. And God made you to do hard things. And so speaking that message to kids on the front side felt so important, because we're seeing greater evidence on the backside more than any other time in 30 years of doing this work, of where kids are backing away from things that feel hard. So that'd be my response as I think about boys. Sissy, what would you say with girls?
I would say undoubtedly anxiety is what I'm seeing the most of. And we know 1 in 4 kids are dealing with it now, 1 in 3 adolescents, and girls are twice as likely as boys. And certainly David is sitting with anxious boys, but I feel like 90% of my conversations are about anxiety, whether it's in the midst of the spring in Nashville, I'm doing a lot of talking about storms, or maybe it's social anxiety, or maybe it's overthrowing up. I mean, there are so many different ways it shows up, but it is incredibly present in the lives of girls. And I would say it's twice as likely in us as women too. And 1 in 3 of us are dealing with it, 1 in 3 adults. And so it is really prevalent. And there's so much research on early intervention with so many issues that kids are facing, anxiety included. And so David and I really felt like with both of these books, if we can help kids not only have some messages that can change the game that they hear from us, but we have some of the tools we use the most in counseling, and we have conversation starters to create some rich conversations between parents and kids as they're reading the book. And our hope is really to create kind of scripts. We love mantras that we can go back to over and over. We have one in my family right now with my little guys that we use a lot that came about at Disney World on Pirates of the Caribbean. Have you ridden that ride before?
I have.
Okay. It's scary. We took my oldest nephew at 4 for the first time, and his little face was registering more and more fear as we were going down those tunnels.
Those
winding
There's
tunnels.
like fire. There's guns.
Exactly. Yes.
Pirates.
Yes. And I got down on Henry's level and I said, Henry, a little bit scared, a whole lot of fun. And we said it all over Disney World, a little bit scared, a whole lot of fun. And it's just this teeny line in the book. But our hope is, again, there are things in those books that parents can come back to with kids to create a different script than the script that is making them more anxious and keeping them from taking a healthy age-appropriate risk that David talked about. We're creating some new neural pathways with these kids' book is our hope.
Well, and what a perfect thing to say when you're trying to get your kids to be comfortable taking risks, right?
Yes.
Like I think about all the things my kids have to do, whether it's go talk to a stranger at a restaurant and ask for something,
Right.
or my daughter dances. So going on stage, like a little bit of risk, a lot of fun. A little bit of scare, a lot of fun. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah,
okay, so I want to get into your books a little bit, and I want to talk about the real stars of the show, because that's the dogs. And you have you have dogs at your office, you have dogs in the book. Like I was actually kind of thinking about, I went to a baptism a few weeks ago and at a local church, and the pastor there is blind. And so and I didn't know when I went to this church because it's not my church. And when I went in, he had a seeing eye dog. He had a golden retriever. And so he just was with him during the entire service. And I was like, why doesn't every church have a golden retriever? Like that just makes sense.
Yes.
Every pastor should just have a dog with him at all times.
Yes.
I just think it would make the gospel make a lot more sense. But
amen to that.
So you guys have probably heard me talk about IXL before, and that is because I truly love it. IXL is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum or offers a little more support at home that balances your school curriculum. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies. It adapts to each child, meeting them exactly where they are. So I have one kid who gets a little bored in math class and he wants more of a challenge. So I've used IXL to give him a little more work at home and really push him in his favorite subject. And then I have another child who's kind of struggled through some of his math units. And so we use IXL to get him a little more practice before those unit tests so that he feels more confident. And it has seriously been such a helpful tool for our family. IXL is easy to use. Everything is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it really simple to find activities for the exact skills that your kids are covering. IXL also offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids use the program. So it's really helpful if you're using it to get a little extra support and practice in a particular subject. Like my family, you can make an impact on your child's learning and get IXL now. And Christian Parenting Podcast listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL memberships when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Again, you can visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the very best price. Have you ever struggled to connect scripture to the real issues that you're facing today? Well, you can discover what the Bible means for your own life with the NIV Application Bible from Zondervan. This Bible features thousands of study notes drawn from the best-selling NIV Application Commentary series. So throughout the Bible, original meaning notes help you explore the meaning of the biblical text, while application notes help you relate the Bible's teachings to your everyday life. There's also book introductions that provide perspective and application for every book of the Bible, along with character profiles, questions to spur your own growth, and articles that explore the different aspects of God's character. Together, these tools will help you learn what the Bible means and discover what it means for your life today. Find out more at nivapplicationbible.com. That's nivapplicationbible.com. Right? Okay,
Yes.
So let's talk about your dogs and the ones that you have, the ones in this book. Like, why do you think that dogs are helpful for kids to understand some of these things? Like, why did you choose dogs?
Well, our first therapy dog ever, as I mentioned, was my little dog named Noelle. And it was in my first few years of counseling, and it was the first kid that I ever met with who talked about suicide. And, as a therapist, a child or adolescent says those words. Obviously, it's the thing that we're the most afraid of in this work. And I knew immediately I had to go call her mom and tell her mom to come get her and take her to the hospital. And so I had somebody working on my house that day, so I had brought my dog. She didn't work at Daystar at the time, and I'd brought my dog, and I said, I'm going to need to go call your mom, and I'm going to leave Noelle with you, and I'll be right back. And so I stepped out of the office, called her mom, came back in, and Noelle had moved from the floor to this girl's lap and was licking her tears. And later, I told our dear friend and boss, Melissa, that story, and she said, bring her every day. And so now, as David said, we have, what'd you say, 6 or 7?
6.
6 dogs on staff. And it is amazing the amount of kids who come into counseling, to your point about church, come into counseling afraid. And my little dog that stars in my book named Lucy had this really great trick where she would, if I held her the right way and I said, Lucy, wave, she would wave at the kids. And it would just set them at ease. It would change the game. And David can talk more about the study he did with his dog, Owen. But I mean, it not only, it softens us, but it literally changes what's happening in our brains. And so there are all these great chemicals being released in a child's brain as they're reading this book about these dogs that I think enables the message to take root in a deeper, more important way.
I love that. That Noelle paved the way for a lot of dogs who came after her. And
she did.
And I think reminded us of all the truths of what Sissy's saying. And, it was interesting when I had Owen, we not only worked together in my office at Daystar, but he and I spent 3 years at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital and were with kids who'd been newly diagnosed with cancer. And in that experience, we're invited to be a part of a study where they were looking at the health benefits for kids who had been newly diagnosed with leukemia. So each visit before we'd walk into the room, they would swab the child and the dog. So take saliva from both so that we could start to really study the chemistry, everything Sissy's speaking to. And it confirmed what we've long known to be true is that, it lowers our cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It releases more oxytocins, which is the nurturing hormone. So it's this amazing seesaw experience of I'm less stressed, I'm more compassionate, all these great things that are happening, not just in us in the company of dogs, but interestingly enough, in the dogs as well. Like the dogs experience an increase of oxytocin when kids were petting it. And so it's this win-win experience that is so in keeping with the story you just shared about what you experienced just watching this golden retriever, just being in the exact same space. And so because those things are true, and because we've seen overwhelming evidence in our work of where dogs teach kids great things as well, I have done as much social coaching with boys with a retriever as any other tool I've used in my office. Because anybody who's been with a Labrador retriever, particularly a young one, knows they stand too close, they lick too long, like they don't have any great awareness whatsoever. And so it's a good tool to be able to teach boys, what is it like when I stand too close, or I'm talking too loud, or I talk too long about a subject I'm interested in before I remember to ask the other person something they're interested in. So it's easier, I think, to get the mechanics of those things through learning with a dog than me just role playing or me just lecturing or me just teaching. So we use them in so many ways. We've seen the benefit in overwhelming ways.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to get emails from parents like, well, now I'm buying a dog.
That's one of our greatest claims to fame when we know we've inspired folks to get dogs. We love it.
It's really funny. Well, if you're thinking about getting a dog and now you get one, I'm sorry and you're welcome, I guess. I don't know. Whatever one that is.
I'm sorry for a couple of years and then you're welcome. We're still in the I'm sorry stage with our puppies right now.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, you're taking what you see in your office and then you're writing it, the benefit of working with these dogs, and then you're writing them into children's books and giving parents these actual tools in the books. And I love 2 of them that are in there, which is a thermometer chart and a feelings chart. And so in my family, we have big feelers in my family. Like they're all 5 of us, like just lots of emotions. And it's hard to identify feelings and let alone like the intensity of feelings and how to manage them and the meaning behind them. And actually, my husband shares this story himself. So he will let me say this. But when we first got married, I was in seminary at the time, and I was in a family systems and dynamics class. And I came home with this like printed for an assignment, like this printed feelings chart. And it was just like so many emotions on this page. And he was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, I am happy, I am mad, and like, maybe I'm sad. And I was like, no, there are so many more. And he just was not aware that he could have so many emotions. And we actually taped it onto our fridge. And he was really intentional for a long time. And we both are, not just him, but of being like, actually, I'm really feeling disappointed and it's showing up as mad. So like, what does that mean? And how can we
Yes.
communicate this better? But it takes a lot of work for adults. So
Yes.
it takes a lot of work for kids. So tell us about these tools and how parents can use them to help their families with all the emotions and anxiety and resilience, all the things that kids deal with.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in the back of Owen's book is, as you kindly mentioned, a feelings chart that is laying this foundation we want to lay with kids of building this emotional vocabulary that, to your great story, is something we're all going to need all throughout life. In our friendships, in our marriages, in our coworker relationships, just this ability to name my experience. And, we talk a lot about it with parents of thinking back to your own elementary school experience when you got that first starter pack of crayons, the big thick ones that were easy to grip and how they were like 5 in the box. And that's really where we want to start, just a handful of emotions with kids, building toward that second set that we got along the way that had 2 rows, and you all of a sudden figure out, okay, there's a couple of colors of green. And to the great story, your husband realizing, oh my goodness, there's a lot of shades I didn't even know existed, which is like that 4-layered box we all got at the end of elementary school with the crayon sharpener on the back. And that journey is moving from what we call emotional vocabulary to emotional granularity, which is just naming our emotions with more specificity. And that's a long journey. But all 3 of us know adults in this world who never traveled that journey. And so they get really roadblocked. And, in thinking about the conversation we shared a few minutes ago with boys, it's important to talk about this reality that males in this world lead the statistics for substance use and abuse. Adolescent males, young adult males. And I think it is a male's attempt to try to shut down or numb out whatever it is I'm feeling, as opposed to developing the skills to name and navigate. So it's just never too early to start laying that foundation, which is why we wanted to put the chart in the back. And that's a great bridge to an amazing tool that we put in the back of Lucy's book. Sissy, talk about that.
That's a thermometer that I use a lot with girls, because that word that you used was so great, intensity. I mean, that is where a lot of girls can get really stuck, is we're more probably aware of our feelings, but sometimes we have a hard time 1 to 10 scale, not living at 10 all the time. And so one of the things I use a lot in my office is a literal thermometer. Now, I jokingly behind the scenes call it a drama-mometer because there's a lot of drama. But I think there are boys that live in that space too. And so helping kids understand, and what we'll do is typically, and in the book we talk about this, finding a calmer moment and saying, what's a 10 on your scale? What's the scariest thing you can imagine happening? What's the thing that would make you the maddest? And what does it feel like in your body when you're in that place? And so then if that's a 10, what's a 7 and what's a 3? And so then when your child gets in the car after school and is like, this is the worst day ever, I have my 3-year-old nephew vacillates between best day ever and worst day ever. And there's not a lot of in between. And so saying, oh, we always want to start with empathy. That sounds so hard. That sounds really tough. What number do you think it was on your scale? And I will have so many girls say to me, oh, well, it felt like a 9, but I guess it was a 5. So all of a sudden they're learning perspective and feeling like kids are jumping to these huge words and huge declarations. Right now, I think we can offset some of that by teaching them appropriate, not only expression like David's talking about, but appropriate experience with those emotions. Lisa D'Amour is a psychologist we love, and she talks about right-sizing feelings. And it's that idea of how do we put them in the appropriate context rather than just being blown out of proportion? Because then they're easier to work through when we can recognize that it's really a 3 or it's really a 5.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you point out that you talk about it in a calm moment, because I think I'm guilty of that. Like I have 2 boys and a girl, but with my daughter, she's our youngest too. Like sometimes I'm trying to talk to her while things are just, at a 10 when they should be at a 2 maybe. And I'm like, this is not, I'm getting literally nowhere with this person.
Exactly.
And I like the thermometer too, because sometimes with her, we talk a lot about like, is this a small, medium, or large problem? But which is good. Right. But there's only 3 categories. And I kind of think for her, maybe she needs more of the 1 to 10. Give her a little more
complexity.
Space. Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's really good and really practical. Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell us what would your advice be for parents who are like, yes, I want to use some of these tools. I'm going to get these books. I'm going to use these feeling charts and thermometers. Like where should parents start?
Well, it's interesting. A couple of years ago, years ago wrote books for parents. Sissy has an amazing book called Raising Worry-Free Girls, and I have a book called Raising Emotionally Strong Boys. And as a companion to those, we wrote workbooks for elementary age kids, kind of 6 to 12. She has one called Braver, Stronger, Smarter. I have one called Strong and Smart. And I think those are really valuable tools for kids in those space to lay this foundation we're talking about. But part of writing these children's books was saying, we can get started earlier than 6. Mm-hmm. We actually should get started earlier than 6. Now, for any parent listening who's got a 9-year-old and thinking, we did not get started, we start wherever we are, wherever we are. I have a hilarious mom who's bought the workbook for her 7-year-old son, and she said, David, his grandfather is going through the workbook with him. And his grandfather's in his mid-60s. And
so
the grandmother evidently said to her husband, you need this workbook worse than our grandson does. And so you're going to go through it with him. And so I love that story because it's that reminder of we're never too old to be learning new skills. And this grandfather in his mid-60s who didn't really develop a vocabulary and could have benefited from the thermometer is going to be practicing these skills and using these tools alongside his grandchildren. So I think wherever we are is where we can start. And Sissy and I hope to create resources that fit kids in different ages.
And they can find all of it at raisingboysandgirls.com. We'll direct them to all the books for all the ages.
I love that you said it's you can start wherever you are, because I think sometimes as parents, part of all the information that we get and all of the social media, all the pressure is that sometimes we feel like it's too late. Like we already messed up, so we might as well just not try. And that's just not the truth.
No.
Not the truth.
Yeah.
No. Yes. It's never too late.
Yeah. It's a good
reminder.
reminder.
Turns out you can teach an old dog new tricks. I'm Exhibit A.
I feel like
we can all learn new things.
Amazing. Okay, so before we wrap up, and I'll point everyone to your website so they can get all these resources, but you also have a conference coming up as well. Can you tell us about that and where we can get more information about all of that good stuff too?
Yes, September 13th. It's in Franklin, Tennessee, and we are going to be teaching some all-new content that we're really excited about helping kids learn to be more capable. It's called the Capable Kids Conference, and we have some amazing friends coming to speak on the topics we felt like parents were asking for the most. I mean, they're going to be talking about mental health for parents, teaching your kids about sex, neurodivergence. What am I leaving out, David? Oh, technology, obviously, family rhythms, so many different things. We're super excited about it. Come spend the day with us in Franklin.
Well, and speaking of the location, for folks listening who are out of town, we were laughing about the weather on the front side of our conversation. And let's tell the truth. Summers in Tennessee are kind of brutal, but fall, our Middle Tennessee is at its best. Like it's just showing off. And so it's a gorgeous time of year. And Franklin is like stepping onto the set of a Hallmark movie. Like we can't even describe what downtown Franklin is like. So it's a really beautiful location. If you just need a weekend away with your spouse, with some good friends, I think you love the experience of just being in a great space, but we're hoping there's going to be some good learning happening in that great space as well.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. So I'm going to go find out more about it.
Please.
I think it sounds great.
We would love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been wanting to go visit Nashville, Franklin for a long time. So I feel like this is a really good excuse. This is my time.
We love it.
Love it.
Yeah. Yes. And I have a code for that too. So I'll put that in show notes and then links to everything else. Where can we, besides your website, where else can we connect with you guys so everyone can continue to learn more?
Well, we try to offer as much practical help as we possibly can on Instagram. We are most active there in terms of all the socials. We think we have a TikTok, but we're too old to even understand what that is. So someone else works on that for us. But if you go to Instagram, Raising Boys and Girls and Sissy Goff, both spaces, we're doing a lot to try and help and equip parents.
Perfect. And I'll link that and maybe TikTok. I don't know if I can find it. I'm not on TikTok either, so I don't know. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. And I think it's so valuable for parents because we need so much encouragement and so much guidance. So thank you for everything that you do.
Well,
we're
grateful
for everything you
do.
do. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just so grateful to share conversation with you today.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, you guys will have to come back soon.
We love it.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Christian Parenting Podcast. I hope that this conversation with Sissy and David both encouraged you and gave you some really practical tools that you can just put in your parenting tool belt. Don't forget to check out the show notes. We have a special code just for you. It's Raising25, and it's a discount code for the Capable Kids Conference. Again, it's Raising 25. That's in the show notes with a link to the conference. I really suggest that you look into it. I know I'm going to. And if you are encouraged by today's episode, just take a moment, just pause right now, rate and review. It really helps us reach more parents, and I appreciate it so much. I will see you next week. May God bless you this week. May you feel God's peace, strength, and wisdom as you lead your family. You are not alone. You are doing better than you think. God loves you, and He sees you. Hey, this is Steph Thurling, Executive Director of Christian Parenting and host of the Christian Parenting Podcast. Every month, thousands of parents read and listen to our podcasts, articles, and digital resources. Did you know that in the past 12 months, the shows on our podcast network have been downloaded over 4 million times? Each one of those numbers represents a life, and we are deeply moved that so many people are receiving accessible, trustworthy, and timely biblical guidance through our resources. If you have been impacted by Christian parenting, we would love to hear your story. Visit christianparenting.org/testimony to tell us about how Christian parenting has impacted your family and your faith. That's christianparenting.org/testimony, or just click the link in show notes.